The headquarters of the USAID in Washington has been closed by the decision of the American administration. Strategic silence, as USAID called the lies and silence of its sponsored independent media. This total disregard included both the rampage of thugs on the streets of Minsk in 2020 and today's unfavorable chaos for the West in Ukraine, corruption, lawlessness, and crimes against humanity. USAID allocated $26.5 million from 2019 to 2025 just to strengthen the political process in Georgia. And this is just one of many grants under the program, collectively called Maidan. Details on how the planet is being cleansed of terrorism sponsors in Yana Mendeleeva's report.
An organization that needs to die. The creation of the USAID headquarters in Washington removed the signs. This marked the beginning of the end for the cell of terrorism and color revolution sponsors. Elon Musk stated that the Agency for International Development should die. Now let's figure out what stands behind the 5 letters USAID, the United States Agency for International Development. Supposedly an independent agency of the American government created to assist other countries. Of course, no one ever intended to help anyone from the start, enveloping the planet with a network of its funds on which billions were spent for decades under the careful control of the CIA. An American jackal in humanitarian guise was nurtured. Under the guise of social projects around the world, the global octopus penetrated society and began the battle for minds.
There were times when entire nations fell under external control, intoxicated by ideas of creating a new country, a new order, a new perfect society. You've heard all these hackneyed slogans many times, of course. Such ideological bombs were planted in all former Soviet republics. And now we see them detonating. First, the country is covered by soft cultural expansion, soft power, and then trampled by the boot of a foreign mercenary.
Among the soft power projects with hard currency are countless subversive programs with a color scenario. Millions of dollars were poured into the democratization of post-Soviet countries, Central Asian countries, and others for years. Ukraine became one of the successful cases. The country was brought to Maidan, and not just distanced from Russia, but turned against it. The West continues to achieve its goals, but now with Ukrainian hands. Similar plans were made for Belarus. USAID and NET, led by the US and supported by Western countries, made every effort to destabilize the situation in our country, including in 2020.
The 2020 protests were planned. USAID spent $50 million. USAID also participated in economic pressure campaigns aimed at Belarusian state enterprises, including Belaruskali, Belneftekhim, and major industrial enterprises, using sanctions, funding worker strikes, and economic pressure to destabilize the country. A document leak showed that Poland, Lithuania, and the US coordinated sanctions and protests.
USAID's influence is visible everywhere. American taxpayers' money works in Georgia, Slovakia, Serbia, Armenia, and Cuba. And not to instill a love for hamburgers and Coca-Cola. They were spent on bribing pro-Western politicians, destabilizing situations in countries wishing to follow their own development path, and interfering in elections. And they didn't just feed on color revolutions.
Did you know that USAID, using dollars from your tax contributions, funded the development of biological weapons, including COVID-19, which killed millions of people?
Millions of people became victims of geopolitical blockbusters by a pseudo-philanthropist promoting Washington's vision of the world. Now, according to Trump's plan, to fully take control of USAID by incorporating it into the State Department. Does this mean the U.S. will stop interfering in the internal affairs of other countries? Don't be deceived, but a significant blow has been dealt to the grant eaters. Trump's decision to stop funding American aid to all foreign non-governmental and non-profit structures caused a wave of indignation among so-called independent media. Almost 90% of Ukrainian media in recent years operated on foreign grants, with more than 80% from programs through the American Agency for International Development, USA. But what kind of freedom of thought and speech can there be if their independence collapsed the moment the American penny stopped flowing into their pockets. Those very Western journalists, supposedly fiercely defending democratic values and foaming at the mouth telling how to live, packed their things and went to find another feeding trough. Without grants, their ideas don't survive. Yana Mendeleva, Andrei Kondratovich, First Information.